Chapter 35. Isabella took a deliberate step backward, maintaining awareness of her surroundings with a caution born of years dealing with dangerous defendants. The concrete felt solid beneath her feet, and each footfall was a precise distance measurement. I'd be concerned about who else might be listening to this conversation right now. Rodgers' eyes darted around the garage, newly paranoid. Isabella recognized the expression of a man suddenly questioning everything, a defendant realizing the extent of evidence against him. His gaze jumped from shadow to shadow, the sudden fear making his movements jerky and unpredictable. "What do you mean? Who else is here?" Isabella merely smiled, letting the question hang unanswered, psychological pressure increasing with silence. The distant drip of water marked time between them, each drop an audible measurement of his growing anxiety. "Goodbye, Rodgers. I'd say it's been a pleasure, but we both know better." She began backing away, maintaining visual contact with the increasingly agitated DA. Harper had taught her this technique years ago. Never turn your back on a potentially dangerous subject. Never surrender situational awareness. Her footsteps echoed softly in the concrete structure, marking her deliberate retreat. "This isn't over, Santos," he called after her, his voice echoing in the concrete structure. His legal composure had abandoned him completely, leaving him with raw fear and anger. His words bounced off the walls, creating a chorus of threats around her. "You have no idea what forces you're dealing with." Isabella reached the stairwell entrance, her hand finding the door handle while her eyes remained fixed on Rodgers. The cool metal felt reassuring beneath her fingers, the weight of the fire door substantial. "Neither do you." As she pulled the door open, Rodgers suddenly moved toward his jacket. Isabella tensed, prepared to duck behind the door for cover, evaluating potential weapons within reach. The heavy fire door would stop most bullets, and her mind calculated angles and trajectories, even as adrenaline surged through her system. Instead of a gun, however, he withdrew his phone with shaking hands. The small device gleamed in the harsh lighting, his fingers trembling visibly as he punched in a number. "Signal!" He barked into it, voice cracking with urgency. "Code red. Santos's location confirmed. Municipal garage, 3rd level. Send units immediately." Isabella felt a spike of cold fear, though she kept her expression neutral through sheer force of will. They'd anticipated Rodgers might try something like this, but not so quickly. The timeline for extraction had just collapsed. The stairwell behind her gaped like a concrete throat, offering escape and potential ambush. "You really think I'd come alone?" he said, a triumphant edge in his voice. Some of his confidence returned as he regained perceived advantage. His posture straightened, courthouse authority momentarily reasserting itself. "The security team has been on standby. They'll be here in under 2 minutes. Isabella ducked into the stairwell, heart hammering against her ribs. Her tightly controlled exterior remained, but adrenaline surged through her system internally. The stairwell smelled of concrete dust and ancient cigarettes, the acoustics amplifying her footsteps into an urgent percussion. The plan had accounted for possible interruptions, but timing was now critical. She descended 2 flights quickly, pushed through a service door, and sprinted down a maintenance corridor, following the route they'd established during planning. Behind her, she heard the screech of tires as vehicles entered the garage, voices shouting commands. The sounds echoed through the ventilation system, distorted but unmistakable. She reached a utility doorway, yanked it open, and slipped inside what appeared to be an electrical closet, breathing controlled but rapid. The small space smelled of dust and ozone, cramped with equipment that hummed softly in the darkness. A figure detached from the shadows, moving with inhuman grace. Mikhail's eyes gleamed slightly in the darkness, reflecting minimal light with supernatural efficiency. His expression remained calm, but she recognized the tension in his stance. The predator ready to strike if necessary. The familiar scent of him, sandalwood and cedar with that underlying wild note, provided immediate comfort amid danger. They responded faster than expected, she said breathlessly, automatically keeping her voice low despite the solid door between them and the pursuers. Her heart still pounded, but the panic eased with his presence, and professional calm reasserted itself. "I heard," he replied, his enhanced hearing having picked up the exchange. No accusation colored his tone, just a tactical assessment of changed circumstances. The slight tension around his eyes was the only indication of his concern. "Katerina is in a position to create a diversion. Did you get what we needed?" Isabella patted the recording device, satisfaction briefly overriding concern. The small recorder felt warm through her clothing, evidence of its continuous operation. Full confession of the conspiracy, confirmation that the mayor ordered the federal prosecutor's assassination, an admission that they targeted you for your property holdings. "Efficient, as always," he said with grim approval. From above, they heard the sounds of Rodgers' security team searching the stairwells, boots on concrete, doors being slammed open. The noise filtered through the ventilation system, muffled but clear enough to track their progress. "Time to disappear," Mikhail said, moving toward what appeared to be a solid wall at the back of the utility closet. He pressed against a specific panel, revealing a narrow passage beyond. The hidden door swung inward silently, evidence of well-maintained hinges and careful planning. "This connects to the old maintenance tunnels. They run beneath most of downtown." "Another sanctuary entrance?" Isabella asked, impressed once again by the extensive network the pack had established. Her appreciation for their thoroughness grew with each discovery of their infrastructure. "One of many," he confirmed as they entered the passage. "The pack has been preparing escape routes for generations." Once the panel closed behind them, Mikhail produced a small light. The tunnel stretched ahead, damp and claustrophobic, but mercifully free of pursuers. The air felt cooler here, heavy with moisture and the earthy scent of underground spaces. Their footsteps echoed softly against ancient brick, the sound deadened by years of accumulated grime. Isabella forced her breathing to slow, years of practiced discipline asserting itself over her physical reaction to danger. "Rodgers knows about you," Isabella said as they moved swiftly through the cramped space. She kept her voice low despite their apparent isolation, caution overriding confidence. The tunnel narrowed in places, forcing them to turn sideways to pass, brick walls scraping against her shoulders. Not specifically about werewolves, but he hinted at irregularities in your background, properties held for generations. They investigated you before setting you up as their scapegoat. Mikhail's expression remained neutral, but she noticed a slight tensing of his shoulders. "Inevitable with centuries of history," he replied, voice matter-of-fact despite the implications. "We maintain human documentation. But determined investigators can sometimes find inconsistencies. His light cast dramatic shadows ahead of them, turning the tunnel into a shifting landscape of darkness and illumination. Do you think he suspects the truth? She ducked beneath a low-hanging pipe, concern for the pack's secrecy momentarily overshadowing personal danger. The pipe dripped slowly, each drop landing with a hollow plinking sound that marked their passage. I suspect something unusual, certainly, Mikhail replied, his movements fluid, even in the confined space. Preternatural grace, evident in how he navigated obstacles. His shadow stretched before them elongated, and somehow more primal against the ancient brick. But humans rarely leap to werewolves as their first explanation. More likely, he thinks I'm involved in organized crime or some other human conspiracy. They reached a junction where the tunnel widened slightly, allowing them to stand upright. Mikhail paused, head tilted in that distinctive way that told Isabella he was listening with his enhanced senses. His body went completely still, a predator's perfect immobility that no human could fully replicate. The small light cast his features in sharp relief, emphasizing the otherworldly perfection that seemed more apparent in moments of tension. Clear for now, he announced after a moment, relaxing fractionally. But they'll have the streets above monitored. We should wait for Katerina's diversion before surfacing. Isabella leaned against the damp wall, adrenaline still coursing through her veins, but professional assessment returning. The brick felt cool against her back, slightly slimy with decades of accumulated moisture. I hope it was worth the risk, she said, thoughts returning to the recorded confession and its potential impact. Getting Rodgers on record admitting to the conspiracy? Absolutely. Mikhail studied her face in the dim light, his enhanced vision missing nothing of her expression. The small light created unusual shadows, highlighting the determination in her features. You handled him perfectly. He revealed more than he intended. He's desperate, Isabella observed, her analysis coming without effort. They all are. The alliance between the conspirators is fracturing exactly as we anticipated. Her voice echoed slightly in the junction, creating a phantom agreement to her assessment. Predators turning on each other when cornered, Mikhail agreed, a hint of grim satisfaction in his voice. The wolf's understanding of hunt dynamics colored his words. A familiar pattern. A soft, rhythmic tapping echoed through the tunnel. 3 quick taps, pause, 2 more. The sound carried clearly in the enclosed space, each tap distinct and purposeful. Mikhail immediately straightened, all senses alert. His posture shifted to readiness, muscles tensing visibly even in the dim light. Katerina's signal, he explained, recognizing Isabella's questioning look. The diversion is about to begin. Within moments, they heard it. The distant wail of multiple sirens, shouts from above, and the crackle of emergency radio traffic. The sounds filtered down through ventilation shafts and access points, muffled but distinct, creating a chaotic symphony of urgency. Multiple vehicles moved overhead, the vibration of their engines creating a subtle tremor in the tunnel. What did she do? Isabella asked, both impressed and slightly alarmed by the evident scale of the distraction. Her expression betrayed curiosity alongside concern. The distant chaos created an eerie soundscape in the underground passage, distorted and ghostly. A rare smile crossed Mikhail's face, a flash of appreciation for his second's effectiveness. Set off fire alarms in 3 surrounding buildings simultaneously. Emergency protocols will force evacuation, pulling security resources away from searching for us, creating chaos to disappear within. Isabella nodded appreciatively, recognizing the strategic elegance of the approach. Her legal mind appreciated the multiple layers of the strategy. No actual damage, no real danger, but maximum disruption. Effective. An old pack tactic, Mikhail replied, a hint of pride in his heritage evident in his tone. He gestured forward with characteristic economy of movement. Now, we move. They continued through the tunnel system, navigating a complex network that Isabella tried to memorize without success. The passages twisted and turned seemingly randomly, some bricked in ancient patterns, others reinforced with modern materials. Her methodical mind, usually skilled at mapping complex information, struggled to track the seemingly random turns and unmarked junctions. Water dripped constantly, creating shallow puddles that reflected their light like black mirrors. After at least a mile of twisting passages, they reached a vertical shaft with metal rungs embedded in the wall. This leads to an access point 3 blocks from the garage, Mikhail explained, gesturing for Isabella to climb ahead. His protective instinct remained evident in his positioning, keeping himself between her and potential pursuit. The metal rungs felt cold and slightly slippery beneath her hands, decades of moisture creating a patina that caught the light. Isabella ascended carefully, her muscles protesting the exertion after the tension and adrenaline of the confrontation. Years in courtrooms rather than field work had left her less physically conditioned than she might have wished in that moment. Each rung creaked slightly under her weight, the sound amplified in the vertical shaft. At the top, a heavy circular cover blocked their exit. "How do we know it's safe?" she whispered back down to Mikhail, instinctive caution reasserting itself. Her fingers gripped the metal rungs tightly, knuckles whitening with tension. The shaft smelled distinctly different from the horizontal tunnels, fresher somehow, with hints of street-level scents filtering down. "Katerina will have left a signal," he replied, voice carrying easily in the vertical shaft. "Check the underside of the lid. 3 chalk marks means all clear. 2 means proceed with caution. 1 means find another exit." Isabella reached up, running her fingers along the underside of the cover until she felt 3 distinct chalk lines. The rough texture of the marks contrasted with the smooth metal of the cover. The pack's attention to procedural detail impressed her legal mind, appreciating systems designed to function under pressure. "All clear," she confirmed, relief evident despite her attempt at professional detachment. "Good. Push up and to your left. It's counterweighted." Following his instructions, Isabella pushed against the cover, which moved more easily than its apparent weight would suggest. A clever system of counterbalances made the heavy metal manageable, even with her limited strength. She emerged in what appeared to be a storage room filled with janitorial supplies. The smell of industrial cleaning products was almost overwhelming after the damp earthiness of the tunnels, bleach and ammonia creating an acrid assault on her senses. Mops and brooms stood in regimented rows against one wall, and shelves of cleaning supplies lined another. Mikhail followed swiftly, replacing the cover with barely a sound, movements precise and efficient. The metal disc settled into place with a soft click, indistinguishable from the surrounding floor once closed. He quickly oriented himself. inhaling deeply to assess their surroundings. Service entrance is through there. He indicated a door on the far wall. Should lead to an alley. The alley beyond was narrow and thankfully deserted, early morning light barely penetrating between the buildings. The sun was beginning to rise, sending long shadows down the urban canyon. The air felt startlingly fresh after the underground tunnels, carrying the mixed scents of an awakening city. Exhaust fumes, cooking smells from early opening restaurants, the indefinable urban perfume of thousands of lives nearby. A nondescript sedan, idled halfway down its length, deliberately positioned for quick exit in either direction. Another detail of planning that impressed Isabella's strategic mind. As they approached, the driver's window lowered to reveal Katerina's watchful face. Her green eyes assessed them for injury or pursuit with military efficiency. Her hands remained at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel, ready for immediate action. The engine's quiet purr was barely audible, and it was a well-maintained vehicle chosen for reliability rather than flash. "Any complications?" she asked as they slid into the back seat, her attention already returning to mirrors, checking for followers with practiced vigilance. The car's interior smelled of leather and something faintly herbal. Some kind of wolfsbane derivative, Isabella guessed, that helped mask supernatural scents. "None we couldn't handle," Mikhail replied, the subtle shift in his posture signaling a release of immediate tension. His body language changed subtly in Katerina's presence, and the alpha to second relationship was evident in minute adjustments of position and tone. "The recording?" Isabella patted her pocket where she'd secured the device during their escape. The small recorder felt warm through the fabric, its electronic heart still faithfully preserving evidence. "Got it." Rodgers confirmed the mayor ordered Douglas's assassination and admitted to the conspiracy against both of us. Professional satisfaction colored her voice, despite lingering adrenaline. Katerina nodded in satisfaction as she pulled the car into traffic, driving carefully to avoid attracting attention. There was no excessive speed, no sharp turns, nothing to distinguish them from normal morning commuters. The early morning streets were beginning to fill with delivery trucks and early workers, providing useful cover for their movement. Harper is coordinating with the FBI team that Damon contacted. They're standing by to receive the new evidence. "How did you manage that?" Isabella asked, surprised by this development. Her eyebrows rose in genuine confusion. The car's smooth movement felt luxuriously normal after the tension of the tunnels, the upholstery soft beneath her hands. "I thought all our federal channels were compromised after the attack." "Not all," Katerina replied, eyes never leaving the road. Hands positioned at precise 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. The morning sunlight caught her profile, emphasizing the predatory lines of her features. Harper had an old partner who transferred to the bureau years ago. Took some convincing, but they're on board now, especially after the public evidence dump created national pressure. Isabella felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Tension she hadn't fully acknowledged, releasing slightly. After days of operating outside the system, they finally had legitimate allies again. The lawyer in her welcomed the return to more familiar ground, even if only partially. She watched the city pass by through tinted windows, buildings catching the early morning light, streets gradually filling with regular activity. A world that had continued turning despite her upheaval. "And Damon?" she asked, unable to keep concern from her voice, despite attempts at professional detachment. Her assistant had become more than a colleague through these events. The car's smooth movement and the safety of Katerina's driving allowed her to focus on priorities beyond immediate survival for the first time in days. "Secure at the secondary sanctuary," Katerina assured her, the slightest softening of her usually clipped tone suggesting she recognized the emotional importance of the question. The morning light softened her typically harsh features, revealing a fleeting glimpse of empathy. Along with the remaining pack members who needed relocation after the Warren was compromised, Isabella leaned back against the seat, allowing herself a moment of cautious optimism. The leather upholstery creaked softly with her movement, releasing a comforting scent of quality and security. They had Rodgers' confession. Federal authorities were now willing to work with them. The conspiracy was fracturing under pressure. For the first time since the siege at Mikhail's building, it felt like they might succeed. "What's our next step?" she asked, mentally organizing next steps as she would case strategy. The car's rhythmic movement provided a soothing backdrop to strategic thinking, a momentary haven amid chaos. "Get this recording to Harper's FBI contact," Mikhail replied, his voice taking on the measured clarity he used when outlining pack operations. The morning light caught his profile, emphasizing the strong line of his jaw and the intensity of his focus. "Then prepare for your public statement." The public statement had been Isabella's idea. A formal video to be released to media outlets once sufficient evidence had been secured, explaining her actions and laying out the conspiracy for public consumption. It would be carefully crafted to expose the human corruption while protecting the supernatural elements of the case. The strategy had been developed during their late-night planning sessions. The perfect synthesis of legal and supernatural considerations. "And Mayor Collier," she pressed, unwilling to leave any loose ends. A habit from her prosecution days when overlooked details could collapse cases. Her fingers tapped lightly against her thigh, her restless energy returning as immediate danger receded. "Not for long," Katerina said with confident finality, a predator's certainty in her voice. Her hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel, the only visible sign of her eagerness for that particular hunt. The morning light caught her knuckles, highlighting their whiteness against the dark leather. "Pack scouts have narrowed his location to 3 possibilities. We'll have him within 24 hours. Isabella glanced at Mikhail, seeking confirmation of this surprisingly definitive statement. He nodded, Alpha's assurance evident in the gesture. "The pack has been tracking him since he fled. He's still in Atlanta, hiding with allies but running out of options." His certainty carried the weight of a hunter who knows his prey is cornered. Only the final movement of the chase remaining. As they drove through the city, Isabella watched the familiar skyline with new eyes. Atlanta had been her home for years, where she'd built her career and identity. The morning light gilded the glass towers, glowing against the brightening sky. Now it felt simultaneously familiar and foreign. The visible city she'd always known overlaid with the invisible network of supernatural territories and sanctuaries she'd discovered. Every alley potentially concealed a passage. Every ordinary building might hide extraordinary secrets. The double vision was disorienting but oddly exhilarating. Whatever happened next, she knew with absolute certainty that she could never return to seeing the world as she had before. The question that remained, hovering at the edges of her mind throughout this ordeal. was what that meant for her future. Mikhail's hand found hers in the darkness of the back seat, his fingers intertwining with hers in a gesture both protective and seeking connection. The warmth of his skin against hers brought unexpected comfort, a grounding presence amid uncertainty. His touch carried that supernatural heat that had become familiar, a constant reminder of his otherness and their unlikely connection. "We're close," he said quietly, and Isabella understood he meant more than just their proximity to their destination. The morning light caught his eyes, briefly turning them to liquid amber, the wolf visible beneath the man. "Yes," she agreed, tightening her grip slightly, feeling the controlled strength in his hand. "We are